welcome back to Alterminds.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I forgot to say that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Welcome back, everybody.
welcome back.
I hope your post-Christmas, post-holiday stuff is going better than historically it's gone for most people.
Hmm.
January is not economically a great month for a lot of people, mental
No.
health wise, not great months. And so far this year, like I can't count the number of times that I have heard people say, I am done with 2025 already. Just
Yeah,
stuff it down the toilet.
yeah, it's a bit of a shit. It's a bit of a shit start off.
Mm,
And
yes.
I would have to blame Donald Trump for that and the Americans, honestly, for the shit start off.
Yeah, and they talk about, now about the influx of
Mm.
all the Americans that were most likely going to get applying to become part of Canada. But I
Mm.
got news for those people. Not only have immigration numbers just been slashed completely,
Mm-hmm.
but Canada's not as friendly as it used to be either,
No.
you
Canada's
know.
just like little brother America. It wants to
Well,
be America so bad. I don't know why.
I think there's people who would agree with that, and then there's a strong component of people who would not agree with that. I think it's just because they're like I'm one of those people who does not believe, the whole 51st state thing for Newfoundland and Labrador becoming part of, becoming party be part of that big place down south. US. There you go. Uh sorry, I lose things. Lots. Um I I don't know if it's about becoming part of the US. I just feel like we have so many of the wrong people at the top in our
Oh
country,
yeah. That's
right?
it's all a bunch of people. Like my fear obviously is that we're going to have a majority conservative government
Yeah.
and shit's going to go south because this dude, the dude that, Pierre Pallier, he rubs elbows with Elon Musk, who just did a Nazi salute, as we just said, like that
Yep.
brother did a Nazi salute to a full room of people.
Yeah.
And he's Elon Musk has approved of Pierre Polyev, and then we've seen Pierre Polyev
It's
go to
Polyev, right?
Polyev,
I
whatever,
think there's a VE. No,
PP,
I'm not correcting you. It's for me because I don't always, what I hear
Pierre
is not
Polyev,
necessarily what it is.
Polyev,
Polyev. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
PP.
We don't want to
He,
get in trouble because we said the wrong name on the media and then everybody's, how the media just comes for you the
yeah.
instant you do anything.
Oh, especially because I'm coming for their Lord and Savior, PP.
Yes, exactly. Indeed,
I'm
right?
coming
Like we
from
just,
their. But he was spotted at like white supremacists, like we have white supremacy groups
yeah.
in Canada, and he was spotted at events with them.
Yeah.
So
Canadian versions of the Proud
yeah,
Boys and
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, my fear is to have a majority conservative government. But then again, I feel like people need to see it get really bad for them to actually care. I don't know why it needs to take people going through things themselves for them to care, but it seems like that's what we need is for it to get bad enough that everybody starts to give a shit.
Oh
Or,
yeah. I mean, I'll draw a really, really, really simple example. When
hmm.
you were a wee kid, did you ever ride down over the stairs on a crazy carpet?
No, I would never be allowed to do that, but it sounds like
I
fun.
wasn't allowed to do it either, but that didn't stop me. When you have parents who are shift workers, you find ways around things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not necessarily about what's allowed or even what's
Mm,
appropriate or anything like that. It's what people find they can get away with. Right?
mm,
So you have to remember that unfortunately is a very real thing. And people who are honest, good people never see the deception coming their direction ever.
no.
Because why would you draw this stuff up in your brain? Like
Yeah.
you don't. And when it comes to not us, we little innocent autistics, because I know lots of bad dude autistic
Yeah.
people. I really do.
Yeah.
Sadly,
Yeah.
we're just as culpable as anybody else for our
Yeah.
actions and have to be
Absolutely.
accountable. But
Absolutely.
there's a level of why,
Mm.
that just affects us that much harder because the systems were never built for us.
Yeah.
So we hit things like the topic of what we're going to talk about today, autistic
Hmm.
burnout.
Mm.
We hit that harder, faster, and much more frequently,
Yes.
right? And our recovery time, because we don't have the resources to come back out of it, just that much harder and that much longer. right? It gets a bit bonkers. So yeah, I mean, I've jumped
And
ahead a little bit to where
you
we're going, but
did, but
I thought it was a good segue
it's
just to say
okay.
like this is, kind of how it fits, right? This is a real example of how it fits and all that. So starting at the top,
So
what do you got?
yeah, I got autistic burnout, tiredness, and overwhelm that can last for months or years, usually lasts longer than allistic burnout. So we're gonna like compare maybe what allistic burnout is, which is the same thing. It has tiredness
Yeah.
and overwhelm, like you have anxiety there. But how it might be a little bit different for autistics than allistics. So allistic means not autistic. Anyone who's not, they can still be neurodivergent. They're just not autistic. So they're called
Yeah.
allistic.
And that's not a derogatory pick at anybody or anything
No,
like that. It's just if you have one term to describe a group, then you have another term to describe who's
exactly.
not part of that group. That's all
Yeah.
that it is. It's not a dig at
We
anybody.
use labels because they're convenient for our brains because our brains categorize and label things. That's how they make sense of the world. So,
I have frequently said, since learning that I'm autistic, I've
mm.
frequently said that imagine being born and told, or well, told you're a version of an IBM, only to
IBM.
find, yeah, of an IBM computer, right? Windows,
Oh, so
whatever.
you're a certain, okay, so you're a certain
Yeah.
computer.
So, yeah, say you're that level of computer and you
Yeah.
have run your entire system and everything that gets tied into it
Mm.
for 40 years on that basis, only to be told in, 40 years into that journey that you're actually an Apple. You're a
Oh,
Mac,
yeah. Your
right?
Macintosh.
And it's like, well, make no wonder I had so many bugs.
Yeah.
Make no wonder things never worked
Make
right.
make no wonder things were running a little bit slow sometimes, running a little
Yeah.
bit frozen.
Or just plain simple would not work.
Would not work, yeah.
And nobody tells you why.
Yeah.
You're just told, oh, go back to the store, go back to the store, and nobody at the store tells you.
And nobody at the store cares.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Nobody at the store gives a fuck.
No, as long as their bills are getting paid, they really don't
They don't
care.
care. So I do have that recovery methods may differ between allistic and autistic people, and I think that especially goes for the amount of time, like how long you're in recovery.
Yeah.
I think for autistic people, you can be in recovery a lot longer.
Yep.
And then you have some skill regression with autistic burnout. So there's stuff that, like, I personally am recovering right now from autistic burnout, and it feels like I can't do some of the things that I was able to do, and that's skill regression. So that happens to us when not just in burnout, like when we're stressed out anyway, like we can have
Would
a
you
meltdown or shut
say
down. What?
that you find difficulty, like with the whole skill regression thing,
Mm.
because you were doing it in an holistic way, first of all, because that was the way you were taught, and now
Yeah.
you have to relearn how to do that in a way that actually works for you?
Yeah. Well, because employment in general, like, so trying to recover so that you can be employed again or be employable again. That's my goal, is to be employable. Just because I'm a single parent, I'm trying to run this household on
Yeah,
nothing.
and most support systems, employment included,
Yeah.
are, even when they say that they're neuroaffirming, really
Yeah, they're
aren't,
not.
because the who defines what neuroaffirming looks like is rarely ever done from a neuroaffirming stance. Like a person, it's rarely ever done with the process, including anybody who's neurodivergent,
Mm.
including autistics.
And just from the
We just,
get-go,
yeah, like
like
we
it's
don't get to
not
sit at the top and make the big
like
decisions.
one of the big things, I'll give a good example. One of the big things is so every now and then you turn and you
Oh,
disappear and
sorry. I warned
it's
you.
just the northern lights. No,
The Northern Lights is not bad. Yeah.
one example is the waking up. So like usually jobs start between 8:30 and 9 o'clock, right? So you have to wake up early. I can't stand waking up, like getting on the go. I don't get alert until like 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. Then I'm starting to feel alert. And then I usually don't get tired until 1 or 2 a.m. naturally, right? So
Yeah.
my sleep schedule has always been like that, has always been like I do better when I get to sleep in a little bit and I get to stay up a little bit later. And that would have worked many moons ago when we were hunter gatherers. There would have been people like me who like to stay up late because we would have watched out for the fire and watched out for our clan. I
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't say clan, but our group. Um,
Your tribe. Yay.
yeah,
Neuro tribes.
you would have been looking over them while while they're sleeping, right? So there, it
Yeah.
was good to have people like me who like to stay up late. But now there's no use for us in this system. And no matter how neuroaffirming anybody claims to be, they're not actually changing the foundation of work. They're not going, okay, well, why don't you come in at 12 instead of 8? They're not doing
No,
that. They're
no, no.
not
And
changing the workday for us. They're not changing the schedules for us.
they don't, they look at that as being a burden on their system.
Yeah, even though
And
I do
that,
great work when I'm
yeah,
alert, it's great. I can
yeah,
work so much better.
one has nothing to do with the other.
Mm.
It has to do with who's on the ground and when on their dime. And they justify that by issuing a paycheck, right? Rather than considering that you would get better value, better bang for buck
Better bang for buck.
if you were able to actually operate on a fashion that worked for you.
Yep.
And I mean, we go back to like there's been many studies done about like neurodivergence, and
Mm.
I would heavily argue that even if for short term, teenagers in general,
Yeah.
so that's neurodivergent and allistic,
Yeah.
right?
Teenagers are on a different sleep schedule.
They just are. So
Yeah.
even if they're not diagnosed with any kind of
Yep.
neurodivergent thing, I would argue that at least for the teenage years, because you know
Yep.
how teenagers go, their brains just kind of like pop out of their skulls there and just go, "What?" It's the whole, exorcism thing happening. So, you know, for even a short amount of time, just because your brain is going through that type of traumatic change,
Yeah. Hormones. Whoa.
for a while you are neurodivergent because
Yeah.
neurodivergent also includes anything that's like PTSD or
Yep.
bipolar or anything like that. It's just basically a divergence from the expected norm
And
of what a brain looks like.
we do. So when I went through my psych degree, this is where I would get really surprised all the time. It's when I started to actually deconstruct colonialism and
There's
how we
that
live
too.
and right. So I started deconstructing because there's actual psychological studies that show that teenagers have a different what would be called a circadian rhythm, right? So some people, and that's some
Is it
people
Carcadium?
carca- circadian rhythm.
I've never heard it actually said out loud. I've only ever read it, so I don't
Yeah.
know.
Um,
Okay.
so that their rhythm would leave them up later and sleep in later, and they've proven that with teenagers. So they've studied them to see like when are they most alert,
Yeah.
and they showed that it's like after 10 a.m. and then they're alert until like 2 a.m. and then it'd be better to change school so that it suits them. They don't even change school even when we have studies that show that these kids are not awake at this time. Like you're waking them
Yeah.
up at 7:30 in the morning. These kids' brains ain't working until 10 a.m. Like
No, gosh, no.
they're not here. They're like just trying to get by until 10. And we
Yeah.
know that, and then they still don't change it. So that's all teens.
Yeah.
Well, mostly. There's probably outliers. There's always going to be outliers of teens who have a natural rhythm of waking up early and going to sleep early.
Yeah, but they
But
would be the outliers in
for
that
the
case.
yeah, for the majority, it's the other way where they need that little bit of extra sleep in the morning,
Yep.
and they
And
don't
we,
change things. And
no, we just get all over.
that's what started my process into decolonizing, though, like decolonizing my mind, is because I started to realize how our systems, even when science is saying like, hey, we shouldn't be doing it this way anymore, our systems don't listen because it's
Yeah.
about them and their productivity and like what they want
Well,
us
and
to
that's a
do.
thing. We built this system.
Yes.
We can deconstruct it,
Mm.
but the political will has to be there for it,
Yeah. People
right?
think that the status quo is something that has always been here, or it's like a forever thing.
No.
It's like, no, the system has only been the system of industrial, like since the Industrial Revolution, really, is the system of like, especially working so hard, like working so much, I should say,
Yeah.
not hard, but working so much and having little leisure time. And I mean, we go through the whole workers' rights that happened and all the factories that were
We punish people because they have an
chaotic.
expectation that they're supposed to be able to have a life outside of work.
Yeah.
We outright punish people for it.
Hmm.
We tell them that they're not hireable, that they're not reliable,
Yeah.
or anything like that because they won't 100% give.
A big thing,
I don't
so
get it.
a big thing for me is when I kind of went into burnout as I was working.
Hmm.
So a big thing that I noted is that the workplace is not adaptable to
Yeah.
your needs. So when you're in burnout, you can't do as much as you used to be able to do, and you also might not be able to do certain things because of that skill regression. So the workplace is not adapting to that, though. They're not they're not
I
changing that
I,
much.
I find it's that, and like, okay, so I'm a very literal thinker.
Yeah.
And for me, what's on the page is what the expectation is.
Yeah.
So when I apply for a job and it's got XYZ listed duties,
Mm.
that's what I think I'm actually going to be
Yeah.
doing. Not getting into the job and then all of a sudden they whack 20 more things on top of me
Yeah.
because I'm the best possible fit. Like,
Mm.
no, that no, that does not make any sense. And you're not paying me for these extra things.
Or
You
they
just
have
thought it
things,
was a good
yeah.
idea.
Because they have all these other things that aren't listed, and it just becomes a part of the job. And it's like, but it wasn't on the list of things to do. But even then, there was stuff on my list of things to do that
Yeah.
when I started to go through burnout, I couldn't do anymore. And
Hmm.
I kind of expected the job environment to change to match my needs. And when it didn't, I was like, well, now the only option I have is to get off work. I have to get off work because I can't actually do my job.
Yeah.
So that's where it
But
gets
it
really
was the job that
frustrating.
became the job, not the job you applied for.
Yeah.
And that's different, right? We get blamed for it for not
Hmm.
holding up and being
Yeah.
the responsible adult and a whole pile of other things that they will just slam on us because it works for them,
Yeah.
right? But to me that's an abuse of the system
It is.
and it becomes abuse of the employee. I mean, it's unwitting violence of a sort because now you've got this
Yes.
worker who would have done a fantastic job if
Hmm.
you'd actually just left them to the job that they had applied for.
Yeah. Or just adapted to their needs if needs
Yeah.
do change. So if you do go through even like a loss of a loved one, like I lost my grandfather in April, and he was like a father to me growing up. So it was
Yeah.
really traumatic to
Yep.
lose
It
someone
will
like
be.
that.
I'm
Um,
so sorry for that. I mean,
yeah.
it happens to us all, and it'll happen
Yes.
to you and I,
We'll have
but
more death in our
still,
lives, but
yeah,
it still sucks.
it's still hard. Look, my she's been passed away since 2015, and she was the most neurodivergent person I have ever met in my life, but she had the life force of the Magi. Like
Mm,
honestly, like she was just all there. She knew everybody in town. If there was something going
oh,
on, she was the little Miss Social
I
Butterfly.
love
She was a
that.
part of it, and she didn't care what anybody thought of her. She just went out and
Love
did
that.
it.
Love that.
And I've said it before and I'll say it again. If there was a person, if I had to meet on the road and take on my grandmother or a Mack truck, I'd take the Mack truck every day of the week. She she was something else. She was such a force of life, and she still helps John cheat at cards. So John and I don't play cards anymore because she's helping
Mm.
him. I mean, our families they make a difference.
They do. So like that can cause and that can trigger what people don't at least I find maybe what neurotypical systems don't understand
Yeah.
is the loss of a loved one can trigger burnout. Like there are
Yep.
things that could trigger burnout, like triggers, right? And then there are like big life changes that can happen,
Even
even
changing
moving,
grades though, like
changing
if
grade.
your
Oh
kid's in
yeah, for
school.
kids. So also with kids, it could show up differently than
Yeah.
with adults. But that a lot of the times in my work, what I was seeing is I was seeing maybe a parent come in and talk about their kid being extremely overwhelmed and triggered by all the stuff. And I would ask them if they thought it was burnout, and they wouldn't know what that looked like in their kid. And I'm like, I know it's hard because kids are more resilient in a lot of ways.
But we
Um,
also don't think of children as being qualified for burnout
yes,
because
yes.
they haven't had the what we
Wow, I
perceive as
hate
the
that.
overload,
I
right?
hate that. Yeah. I hate that though, because
Yeah.
people really do think that kids aren't whole humans
Yeah.
that have like a whole complex spectrum of emotions and thoughts
Hmm.
and feelings and they are in their environments and reacting to their environments
Yeah.
and we know the school environment just like the work environment is not neuroaffirming. It's
Yeah.
not.
No, it isn't. I mean, I look at my sister's kids and the struggles that they've gone through and stuff like that. But I mean, at the same time, even though we're provinces away, every
Mm,
time I talk to my sister and I hear a new story about something about how the kid didn't do so well or did do so well or whatever, I always have, like in the back of my mind, I'm always asking, okay, what supports went into play so that
yeah.
that person was affected one way or the other,
Yeah.
And I can't, after I spent, I guess, spending so much time researching and stuff like that, like I'm geared to asking those questions now, but I think we have to be anyway.
Yeah.
right? Especially when you're interacting with systems that were not built for people like us, and especially when we're able to recognize that we don't ask the questions to begin with,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean the
And
effect isn't there. We just haven't learned to recognize it.
another thing that I think people need to be aware of is that medical professionals also don't a lot of the times have the experience to know what burnout looks like, so it
Yeah.
frequently is misdiagnosed as depression. Now you can have
Oh God,
depression,
yes.
you can have depression and burnout. You can. I
Yeah,
have that. I have depression and I have burnout.
same.
So we can have both, but sometimes it's misdiagnosed as depression when it's actually just burnout, not just burnout. Sorry,
Yeah.
the way I said that sounded
No,
like I was.
no, and that's fair.
It's
That's
just
fair.
burnout. No, but
Sometimes we just go there. It totally is. Don't mind me in my happy, weird voice. I could be talking to a rock and I will animate the rock with that type of voice. I
so
mean,
it was hard to find professionals that even now
yeah.
I have a psychiatrist that I think does his best, but is not really grasping that it's burnout as more focus on the depression part of things, which is
And actually, this is something slight
mm,
tangent off to the side, but it's relevant.
okay.
I swear.
I'm
Um,
ready for it.
yeah. This is one of the things that I'm fighting for as part of the changes with the system in general. Okay, hang on 1 second. Yes, door. Hi. Okay, okay. Thank you. I'm back. See, look, I
Okay.
came through the light.
We
Sweet.
came
We
to
can
the
edit that
lights.
out. Yeah, we can edit that out if you want. Yeah, okay, so I think as we enter the system, if we know we're neurodivergent, right?
Mm.
If you've been diagnosed or confirmed, whichever way you choose to go about identifying, um, you should be able to ask for a neurodivergent, like somebody with similar neurotype, as the
Mm.
health practitioner. Now that requires a lot because our medical system doesn't really encourage anybody who is a practitioner to identify that way. That's
Yeah.
again another
Yeah.
change that I hope for. But if you bring your kid in for treatment for anything, I think you should be able to ask for somebody who reflects their neurotype, not
Mm.
necessarily the parents, because the practitioner is still for the kid, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
in order to meet them at their level, you have to be able to go there. You have to
Yeah.
know what they're talking about
I would
because,
love to have an autistic
oh,
practitioner. That would be
exactly.
amazing.
I do. My family doctor is
Yeah.
autistic. And I mean, and I'm not going to disclose his name. No, because
No.
that'd have
No,
everybody
you'll
on
have
short time. No,
everybody trying to
no, no, no. But
please see
it was a
us.
lucky. Yeah, he does. And it's funny because he and I get on the phone, and it's because both of us also have that auditory thing.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, we're both talking at each other rather than to.
Yeah.
But when we're in the room and my worker said he saw it was to him, he said it was awesome. He said he saw the interaction happen at a different level,
Hmm.
because the neurotype discussion, the language, it really
Yeah.
is a thing. When you can communicate with somebody who's on the same level and thinks in the same pathways as you do.
Yeah.
I mean, he's certified GP and stuff like that. I'm not. Different knowledge base, but we can speak in the same language, so it makes a difference, you
Yeah,
know?
there's almost like a built-in respect, I think,
Yep.
that's happening, which is not happening in a lot of spaces, especially in medical spaces. There's not a lot of open, if anything, there's a lot more, I don't know, like a lot of disrespect, especially for people who are
And it
addicted to
ends up
substances.
being it ends up coming out a lot of ways. It ends up coming out as like oh God, what's that word? Gaslight, medical
Yeah,
gaslighting,
yeah, gaslighting, yeah.
right? Just because you can't speak the same language.
Hmm.
And so you end up being misdiagnosed and mistreated for things that if you'd had the ability to phrase it in the way that you'd want to, that actually was reflective of what you were experiencing, it would have been a different thing altogether.
Yeah.
So it was, and I know this because, like, when I said to my own doctor, I said, I'm going through burnout. And he
Mm.
said, which kind? So he knew,
Yeah.
I could tell him
That's
it
nice.
was, yeah, I could tell him it was autistic burnout. And he was like, yep, okay, cool. So his recommendations are different
Yeah.
than for actual burnout, right? Like it was head towards glimmers. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you're in depression,
Mm.
it's a different response because you wouldn't say go and do more activity. You know that that person's probably not going to be capable of it
Yeah.
for different reasons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like I said, slight tangent off to the side, but it's relevant because
Relevant.
how we ask the questions, it comes back to really understanding what it is genuinely that's going on. Is it autistic burnout? Is it allistic burnout? And they're not the
Is
same.
it depression? Is
Yep.
it anxiety? Is it, yeah, and with autistic burnout, you're going to see skill regression, you're going to see increased shutdowns, so increase in fatigue usually, um, memory loss and change to cognitive processing. So for me, it's like I've gotten a lot slower at being able to process information.
Yeah.
And your memory just kind of is like, if you don't write it down, it's not. I had to write down, I have a little habit
I have to
tracker.
remember to write it down and
I ha
then
Yes,
not go, okay, I'll write that down. I'll
I
remember to
even
write that down later. No,
I had to
no.
write down, okay, so for my habits that I had to write down, take vitamins, shower. Like these are
Mm-hmm.
things that I would forget to do, right? Uh,
Yep.
clean the dishes, brush my teeth, floss.
Are you
Thing.
also ADHD?
Yeah, I have both
Okay,
autism and
so
ADHD.
there's that part then as well. I thought you were. I wasn't sure because
Yeah.
it makes a difference as well too. ADHD, you have to specifically remember to do each and every task. We don't develop habits. They
Yes,
say, oh, if you
yeah.
do something 10 times over, it'll
Yes.
stick. It
No,
doesn't.
it doesn't
I
for us.
am I'm med non-compliant because even if I take the pills and I put them on both levels of the house and I stick them in front of my face, it
Yep.
becomes part of the environment. And because I do not think, go take the meds, it never happens. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how important it is. It doesn't matter if
No.
it's for my
It could
diabetes
be
or anything
like
like that.
life-saving medication. That's, I mean,
No,
well, yeah, because
completely irrelevant.
when I first got on stimulants for ADHD,
Oh,
um,
I want those. I'd really do.
I I was shocked because they're really like stingy about it. So like the
Yeah.
day you can't get your medication until the day they're on out, and they're always worried about people selling the meds
Mm.
and and then overusing the meds. And I'm like, I'm not addicted to these meds. I can't even remember to take these meds. Like they're
Yeah.
and I'm supposed to take them right away. Like I'm not on them right now, but I was on when I was on them. You're supposed to take them like as soon as you get up, and I
Nope. Mm-mm.
nope. And didn't matter how long I was on them, physiologically not addicted to them because people would say that they're addicting or that they have addictive qualities because they're
Yeah.
stimulants, right? But no, didn't even notice. Didn't even,
No. I mean, I want the stims. Like I want the stimulant
yeah,
medication because to me, hopefully that would help my brain stop rattling around inside of my brain case, right? And it would help me to remember to take all of the other meds that are life affirming in many ways.
yes,
But I
could help
can't
with the other
because
meds.
because my diabetes is so far out of whack. It would they're the way the meds are designed. I mean, they're stimulant by nature, so there's an understanding that it would most likely contribute to blood circulation problems, heart
Mm.
issues, and things like that. So they
Yeah,
don't want to put one at the risk for the other.
has a lot of side effects
Yeah,
to the stimulant meds. A lot of
yeah, and
side
I'm just
effects.
like, yeah, but I would argue that I would be much more hopefully regular with my meds if I were
Yes,
actually
you
able to take
would.
this thing.
I think you would. You would be regularly. Like, I do want to talk to my doctor about getting back on, not stimulants. I want to try non-stimulant ADHD meds.
Yeah,
I
they
never
have
tried them.
those.
Yeah,
I
apparently, and I've never
Okay,
tried them
I've never
before.
heard yet.
So I'll document my journey on TikTok if I get on them. Um,
Yay! I'd love to hear about it all.
so what else can we talk about when it comes to burnout? I have causes, which is like pushing oneself, especially
Yeah,
when
there's
dysregulated.
that's a really big one. Like to me, I
Well,
think
not realizing you're dysregulated and then
mm,
continuing to push yourself.
because society teaches us
It
to.
teaches you to do that. You're
Yep,
groomed to do that. You're from a young age, you're groomed to do that.
yep, very, very much so. I mean, it's not all poo-poo on society all over the place and stuff like
Well,
that, but at the same
for
time,
me
it's
it is.
recognized. I try to, own my own accountability. right?
Yes.
Recognize that I have taught myself over, taught myself and been taught by
Mm.
neuroaffirming sources that also didn't realize they were that they were neurodivergent until way later. Apparently, I'm an influencer. People people after they speak with me,
Go
all of a sudden
on
they
to,
realize and they're like,
yeah,
"Oh yeah, now it makes sense." Yeah.
yeah,
That's okay. I guess that's why I'm in healthcare. So
yeah,
anyway, that's all well and good. But um it's recognizing, I think, the differences is really important, right? Recognizing, okay, is this mine to own, or is this something that I have to
yeah,
now unlearn?
yeah,
And do I need supports to unlearn it? And what do those supports look like and all that kind
yeah,
of stuff. So I mean, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
yeah. You're right there. There's, there's a lot of stuff that we have to unlearn. There's stuff that, but a lot of it is that. A lot of it is
Yeah.
unlearning.
Well, and that's the thing, right? And that's like, and if you need supports, again, I
Yeah.
go back to making sure that you actually have supports that match your neurotype,
Hmm.
right? And that's a bigger ask than people really realize. It's not, and it's not even to do with, the systemic changes and stuff like that, because we have people who are smart enough to recognize all that stuff now. It's that the world is currently blowing up,
Yes.
right? How do you access or even design processes to now get
Hmm.
access when everything is on fire?
Yeah. But both metaphorically and literally,
Yeah.
everything is on fire.
It's like
Yeah.
the house is burning down and you're just trying to find the outlet.
Yeah.
You just want to find the door.
You're just like, where am I? Like it always brings me back to that meme of the dog with the house on fire, and the dog
Mhm.
is like, "This is fine,"
Yeah,
and that's
it's
how
all
it
good.
feels. It's like we're
Yeah.
trying to just survive in a collapsing system.
And it's harder for us.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to think that because everything's burning down, we'll
Mm.
get to rebuild, but we're not the people who were in play.
No, there'd have to be a cultural change, right? The thing about all of this, about all of us trying to talk about advocacy and like understanding and blah blah, for people to even get to a place, they have to want to understand you. They have to want,
Yeah.
like, their empathy has to be greater than their own individualistic selfish needs, right? Like
Yep.
if they have, oh, I want a car, I want a house, I want a family, I want this. And if they're more focused on all of those things, what they want, and they're not listening to anybody else to see what
No,
they need, right?
they don't have the mental space, I think, in a lot of ways,
Mm.
to be able to do it or to even recognize that they're not doing it to begin with.
Yeah, well, yeah, a lot of people don't even realize that they're not doing it, that they're not including others in their little fantasies.
Spiel. We
Yeah.
forget that, and I think you mentioned this in the conversation we had offside last week. It's, the people who are sitting at the table are a bunch of white people,
Yeah.
making decisions for
Able-bodied,
everybody. And it's
able-bodied white
true.
people.
We don't, we sit down and we go, okay, we're here for an hour. We've got to get all this stuff done. Let's just bomb into it. And then we forget to look around the table and say, okay, who's not here?
Who's not here? Yeah.
Right? And who's not here by design
Mm-hmm.
or because we just never thought to ask?
Mm-hmm. Which is
You
like,
know,
most of the time
it's
it's both.
privilege.
Yeah, it's both of those things. Like, it's by design. Like, it was, the system was made not to include certain people.
Yeah.
But a lot of times it's that the people with privilege aren't questioning enough. They're not questioning like the environment around them to be like, what is this? What should this look like? Maybe can we change this? Is there a better?
Yeah.
I mean, they're so bad at that. I feel like, and I feel like a lot of that is neurotypicals too, but then I'm very biased, obviously. But I feel like not looking around and being able to see how things can be different. Like,
Yeah.
I look around and I'm always thinking how things could be more efficient, things could change to be better.
Yeah.
These systems could be better for people. But I feel like neurotypicals often aren't looking around questioning and critically thinking about, because it serves them. So why would they have to think
Critical
about it?
thought, I think, is the thing that we need to go back to.
Yes.
There's a book series actually that really focuses on this, and it's on my to-do read list.
Mm-hmm.
Critical Conversations, I think it is. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's talking about the lost art of critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
and why it's necessary, why we need to bring it back, why we need to educate from that angle from the get-go. Like, we
Yeah.
don't teach our kids in school critical thought. We teach them
Yeah.
how to
That's what I
feedback
was,
whatever the teacher says.
and that's what I would like to make a point to say. So if you're listening to this and you're like critical thought, like I don't know if I do that, blah blah blah.
Mm,
You were groomed to not do that, like in school.
yeah,
Like as our kids grow up, and I have a 5-year-old. As they grow up, the school system does not teach them critical thought. Okay,
nope,
they might have a couple good teachers who instill in them critical thought, but other than that, it's not built in. So like it's not exactly is the one of the things
and we
that when we
punish
go back.
kids who ask defiant questions.
Yes. So when we go back to, is this a learned behavior? It often is a learned behavior. Like you not critically thinking about things, that's a learned behavior because
Yeah,
it was never valued as you were growing up.
yep. We punish kids because they're not compliant.
Yes.
And I mean, we know now that, the whole gentle parenting gets so much crap thrown on it because it's like, oh, you're just a granola parent. You
They
don't
just
want
don't
to be mean to your
understand that.
kids. And you're like, no, I'm a gentle parent because I want to ask better questions.
Yeah, I want to listen. I want to
Yeah.
listen. I want to stop talking and stop assuming what's best for someone and listen. That's how I feel about when I'm parenting Chesley. I feel like I need to get to know him.
Yeah.
I want to just listen to him. I want to hear what he has to say about things. Even when he's being disrespectful, that's also,
Yep.
I'm listening. I'm like thinking, okay, what's going on for
Yeah. And you
him to
try and
be.
listen for what he's not saying as well.
Yes, yes.
There's absolutely that component. I mean, my sister's kids, when they feel like talking to people, because they're all neurodivergent and they have the right to say no, you
Yeah,
know. The youngest, he of her crew, she said, "Oh, do your Aunt Angie's on the phone? Do you how do you feel about her?" And which is kind of something like that. It was an open-ended question, and he was focused on his video game. This was bad timing, I think, for
bad
this
timing.
question.
Yeah.
Really bad timing. And he said, "I love her, okay?" And then,
Okay. Okay, now stop asking me
yes,
questions.
exactly. I'm busy here. You know, and it's okay. I mean, I love that kid as well too, but I love him because of his honesty,
Yes, yes.
not because he says the right thing at the right time or
No.
anything like that. I mean, and this is the same kid who's going through Parliament building at, in Saskatchewan. At Regina's school did a tour or whatever, I think. And they only give the kids like half an hour to just bomb through this building, right? Like, hurry up, get it all done now because we're on a timeline. Let's go.
Hmm.
And he's sitting there at the end of the half hour, and he's like, I'm not done. I have
No, I'm not done. I
questions.
have more questions.
Yeah,
He needs like a full separate sheet where he can write down his questions.
of course he does. He's 10 years old. The government is going bonkers,
Bonkers, yeah.
provincial, federal, all of it. He wants to know what's on the go in the
What's on
world
the go?
around him.
It's so, I love that about, like, that's what I mean. Some of
Yeah.
these kids, a lot of these kids have critical thought,
Yes.
like, they want to know more, and we as adults extinguish it in them,
Yep.
the curiosity that they have, which sucks. Because
Because we're
they're
on a
like brilliant.
timeline or
Yeah, we're on a
whatever, right?
timeline, or we got to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Like you got to get this done. You got. It's so much of parenting is like you're trying to get something done because you're on some sort of schedule, and that's
Yeah.
another reason why I hate the system, because
Yep.
I'm on that. Me and my son are on that schedule. So like I'm waking up at 7:30 in the morning, getting him dressed, getting him something to eat. Bet, 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 bet. Oh, you got to get on the bus. You got to go to school. You got to have your lunch. You got to come home from school. You got to get a bath. You got to. It's all this stuff, right? And
And you
sometimes
know what?
you just want time to be.
Yes, that's the thing. And if you're a disabled person
Mm.
and if you have to use paratransit,
Oh
right?
gosh.
So now you're on another timeline as well.
Hmm.
So you and your kid go to the grocery store. You're trying to give your kid time
To
to
be a kid.
understand, to beat a kid, but also to, like, I mean, a lot of parents try and bring lessons of a level.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like how to pick out a good watermelon, how to
Yeah.
sniff the fruit and things like
Yeah.
that. And those things take time. But if you're on a paratransit services time,
Yeah.
you don't have allowance for that. There's no freedom to be able to
Mm.
call in and say, I'm going to be half an hour longer than I'd planned,
Yeah.
because they're just like, nope, sorry, we can't accommodate you. Find your own way home. And that isn't a reality for people, especially now who are on fixed budgets.
Yes.
right? And so, I mean, just the assumption that the person can just accommodate and whatever. And I mean, it's not just about the kid asking questions. Kid has a meltdown in a
Mm.
grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
That's not an easy resolve.
No.
Maybe that kid just needs to get out of the store, needs to get home right now.
Yeah.
And no paratransit service is going to be able to help out at that
Yeah.
level. And they'll come back and say, well, I'm sorry, that's really too big of an ask. And it's like, you
Mm.
know what? It really isn't. If
No.
you understood where this is coming from and the whys and all that kind of stuff, and you understood the population that you're actually dealing with, you would never have just said what you did.
Yeah.
You know, it so many of the systems just really try to check boxes that aren't realistic.
Yeah. It is a lot of that. It's a lot of that. It's always these blueprints that we're supposed to be matching up to, and I'm just like, who built these blueprints? They're
We did.
awful. Well, we did, yeah, but maybe not we did,
No, you and
but
I, but I mean,
society did, yeah.
yeah. And that's why I
If you,
always go
because if
back to
you and
we
I
built
built
it.
them, they'd be better.
Are you kidding me? The whole place would be sunflowers and lilies. We're good. No, not that good, but still.
But it'd be good.
I think we would have asked better questions.
Yes.
And I mean, and that's an easy thing to say of like, well, you're not there, you don't know, la la. I'm not there because I was
No.
never allowed in the room.
We never asked. We were never asked. We weren't
Yeah,
invited.
yeah.
Nobody
And when we
invited us to
spoke
the
up,
show.
you shut us down.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I speak up all the time. My mouth is always going about something, and it's
Same.
like, so I don't like this idea that, oh well, we didn't know any better. It's like there are people screaming at you all like let's take like politicians who can make
Mm.
changes to policies, right? There are people screaming at politicians all the time about what they want. And yet politicians will still act like we don't know. We don't know.
Or
We
they
didn't
will
hear.
go and hide behind said closed door because they don't want to
Yeah.
hear the screaming
They don't
anymore.
want to hear it. Yep. Mhm.
And we've had a number of politicians recently that nobody could get hold of
Yeah.
because they were just in the office and weren't available for
When
comment.
available. Yeah.
You know, it I
Which is
I
not
think
okay. They're public
no, it
servants.
isn't.
They work for us. We pay their wage. They work
We
for
pay a
us.
really high wage
High
actually.
wage. Yeah, they get six figures.
They get a lot
Or
more.
sorry, some of them get 90,000 something, but they're still close enough to six figures that I'm going to call it six figures.
Well, that's the thing. They get the privilege of being able to live more freely
Mhm.
than than the people at the bottom of the rung,
Mhm.
get the freedom to do. But we work just as hard.
Oh my gosh, yes. I would say harder. I would
Yep.
say like the average blue collar worker, like construction worker, works way harder than anybody who wears a suit. You
Well, we
know,
have to live with the consequences of
yeah.
these people who made really uneducated statements and policies and things like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And that's hard to live with the consequences of something you had no part of,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
Because you spend all your time mad and trying to fix it and trying to accommodate.
Mm.
People say we don't accommodate for anybody else, that we're so rigid and stuff. It's like, dude, you have no idea what I've had to accommodate
I
just
do
today.
know there are some autistics who definitely have a lot of rigidity, but again, that's like I don't like when there's blanketed traits thrown around. But sorry, this is totally off topic because it's not about burnout. It's not really about the system, but when
It
people,
ties in though because it's the expected things that you have to put up with to push
yeah,
through,
yeah, people
right? And
expect that
it does
all
come back.
autistics are rigid or that we all think of black and white. I mean, we do. There's diagnostic criteria for autism that includes rigidity and sameness,
But
likeness
the
to
people who
sameness.
wrote those things are not
They're not
neuroaffirming,
they're not autistic and not
no,
neuroaffirming, no.
and they're not recognizing that rigidity, the majority of the time, is a trauma response.
Yeah.
You need to be able to expect what's coming in order to deal with it. And if you don't know, you don't know what to prepare for. It's like
Mm.
if you were going to Cancun and you didn't know what the weather was going to be like, so you bring four suits of like parkas and stuff, right? Because nobody told you.
Nobody told you.
Florida sure as shit did not see that storm coming their way.
Oh yeah. That's been good old climate change. It's
Yeah,
always there. It's always
yeah.
there at the back door being like, "Hello, I'm coming closer."
Well, and that's the thing, right? And I mean, and to me, that's where that ties back to burnout for people like us. Like, we're
Yeah.
just, everything gets thrown at us. We're expected to handle it no matter
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
and continue to handle it. And it's like, look, stop bending me over, okay? And if you're gonna do it, at least use some lube. Gee whiz.
That part was 18A.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry. My bad. Sorry, I watched Julie Walters last night, and she was doing a coastal railroads trip, and she told somebody to bug her off, and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. This is Channel 4, though. You can say that stuff, right?"
I love that.
Sorry.
I love
Anyway,
when
yeah,
people accidentally curse or say something bad and then they're like, "Am I allowed to say that?"
yeah, I'm so sorry. You're apologizing for being who you are,
Mm.
right?
I curse a
And
lot
as you
too.
are.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
I'm a
curse a lot.
sailor.
Yeah.
I admit.
Okay,
But
is there anything else that we need to talk about burnout before our time is
recovery.
up? Recovery. I have support networks, formal versus informal.
Okay, what
Um,
would you do? Because we have a lot of parents that
mhm,
listen to us
mhm.
and they don't recognize, or maybe they do now, hopefully, recognize what burnout might look like for their kid.
Yeah, yeah.
How do they help them when they come home?
Oh man, I would leave my kid alone.
Yeah,
That's what I would do. I mean, I would be there for them. The thing is, like, being there for them, you can be there for them without saying anything.
yeah,
Um, but I kind of think that you should let your children decide what they need and then kind of just support them in that. So if they come home and they want to go play on their video game for an hour, let them do that, man. It's what they need right now. They need to come home and they need to decompress. Um, or if they want to play with you. So, like, I don't know if a lot of parents are playing with their kids, but it's really important to play with your kid.
play is huge.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's how they
it's
learn.
huge. Even if you're just sitting next to them while they're playing, that's another, like, I know some autistic kids might not want you to like actually directly play with them. So parallel play. I think but I think just letting them guide you because they're gonna like kids know what they want. Even babies, they know what they want. They cry
Yeah,
when they're hungry. They cry when they need to get fed. They cry. Yeah, so intuitively they'll do what they need to do. You just have to have help guide them and then have that like I know with screen time it's hard, but that does have to be limited because we know that screen time is not good around bedtime.
it's
It's
not good around. It's not good for the physical stuff, but for the mental, it can.
it's good.
Yeah.
But I'm just
So
saying you got to have the limit. You got to
there's
have
a
limits
yeah.
on it because we know that it doesn't help with sleep. So
Hmm.
then and sleep is so important for everybody. I can't stress enough how people need to sleep. How
Yeah.
important it is to sleep.
Yeah, when
And
I'll go through like a week of meetings or something like that,
yeah.
and then we're supposed to have people here on the weekend to help out, and I'm just like, no, I'm socially burnt. I cannot do this.
Hmm.
Do not put anybody in front of my face because I'm sleeping, so
And
it's useless.
that's what another thing I was going to bring up was to have accommodations for your kid in school if you know that they're struggling.
Hmm.
You might need to accommodate them so that stuff is cut out of their schedule that they just isn't necessary. Like there might be things that they really can't do right now.
Yeah,
And there might be expectations for them to do certain things in school and they just might not be able to meet them. So you have to talk to your kid's school about what the expectations are and what ones can that kid meet or what ones maybe can be put off until next year or when they're feeling better.
yeah, and the schools really have to stop coming back and
Oh,
putting their expectation on the children.
I
You
could
know,
we could do full
I
volumes of
think we will.
podcasts about school because
Yeah.
yeah, it's I'm not, and like when I say that to the parent, hey, you should go to the kid's school and talk about accommodations. I know that that's a terrible process. Like I understand that that's not, it doesn't, a lot of times doesn't go well, and it's very
Yeah.
stressful, and it's very hard to advocate when you're not used to it, when you don't, when you're a new first time parent and you're trying to advocate for your kid. It's hard.
Well, I know of one example. So again, going back to one of my nephews,
Hmm.
um, so he struggles with handwriting because he struggles with the fine motor skills.
Yeah.
The teacher's solution was to prescribe more handwriting
What's up
outside
with
of school.
that? What's up?
That it
That
it
just
doesn't
stresses them
work.
out. That's just gonna stress them out.
Not only stress him out, but because you're feeding exactly the thing that it's not about he already doesn't do well with. It's that ant,
Yeah.
right? It's you're deliberately exacerbating a
Mm.
specific motor task that is already beyond that person's skill level
Yeah.
or ability.
Or
right?
ability, because
And
maybe
you're
he might never be
directly
able to handwrite.
right, exactly. And that's got nothing to do with the fact that we don't teach cursive in school or anything
No.
like that anymore. It's totally different bag. People consistently will project their expectations
Mm,
onto somebody else because they're, and I had this happen with my OT actually. My OT came in and we were talking about me upgrading to another mobility device, and
mm.
they were like, "Well, I don't want you to give up your independence." Sweetie, it's not about you.
It's
It's
not
about
about
me
you.
and what I
Yes.
need.
Yes.
And that's the framework that we need to transfer over, I think, that we need to go and go, okay, this is not about me. Ego out of the room, bye bye. What does this person need? What does that have to look like if they're
Yeah.
in burnout? If that means that that person needs to sit in front of a candle for 40 hours, you let them do it.
Yeah. I think the thing that all of like anyone listening could go back to learn more about is autonomy. If you learn more about autonomy, like which is basically
Yeah.
your right to your body is your choice. Like what happens to your body, what happens to you is
Yep.
your choice. Um, then you can start to actually shift a lot of the things that you go through in your environment because you can see it through a different lens when you're learning about autonomy that would really help with kids because kids need
And
their own autonomy,
and
right?
that's going to feel really uncomfortable, so
It's
you're going
gonna
to have to
feel,
get used to
yeah,
feeling uncomfortable.
it's gonna feel because like everything in our system is meant to go against your autonomy. So like you
Yeah.
don't have a choice about like when you get up in the morning, when you eat, when you go take a poop at work, like you don't have a
Yep.
choice about all the same with the kids at school. So like everything about the system is trying to take away your autonomy. So it's gonna feel very uncomfortable when you recognize it and you start to try to actually see things through this lens of like what do I actually have a choice over?
Yep.
It's gonna be a little bit uncomfortable,
And
but
then there's the ask. Most of us are never taught how that how to claim any of that back.
mm,
Like I don't know, weird example. So putting a hammock into my living room and saying, "Okay, well I don't need a couch, but I need a hammock."
mhm.
That kind of idea. It's like, well, who told you that you had to have a couch in your living room? I
Yes.
don't know. That's how I was
That's
raised. That's
that's
what I
how we
knew.
were. That's what everybody does. Put a couch in the living room. I just
Yeah.
thought that's what we were supposed to do.
I didn't realize that I had to give myself permission,
Yeah.
and that's a hard thing. Like we
Mm,
think we're supposed to do all these things and we forget to ask who the hell taught us that.
yes.
And
And
that's not,
who is it benefiting?
yeah,
When yeah, when you don't have control over yourself and your body, who does that benefit? And like when it comes to kids, adults want control over children, so they want them to be obedient because they want them to do whatever the adult says, they want their child to do that thing, right?
yeah,
Or a child to do that thing because they want them to be compliant.
yes,
So who does it benefit that your kid doesn't have autonomy? It benefits all the systems, but it doesn't benefit your kid to not have autonomy. And
nope.
same thing
And
with
then,
you.
yeah, and an easy test for this would be go and write a journal entry. Go and write a journal entry and really sit down and think about how many times you edited yourself. This is a journal entry not
Mm,
meant for anybody else to witness, just you. Think about how many times you corrected yourself
mm.
and made the sentence sound better or whatever,
Oh.
right? And I did not realize I was even editing myself
Mm-hmm.
until my psychologist said, "Why are you stopping?"
Mm.
And I'm like, "Oh, I'm trying to phrase this in a better way that doesn't seem so harmful or whatever." And it's like, "It's my bloody journal."
Yeah. Why? Especially in your journal. Yeah. Why are you editing yourself?
Exactly, but we all do it, and
We
we
all
do it
do.
to a really, really, really huge extent. So,
Mm.
we go, "Oh, that person has no filter. They have no boundaries, whatever." And it's like, well, you don't necessarily want to go to that extent, but what are you doing to your own brain that you are
Mm.
limiting yourself in that way? Right? So, I mean, if you want to know what autonomy looks like, even from just a basic mental capacity 5-minute activity, try that and
That's a
then
good
go.
that's a good place to leave off. That's a good place to end our session. We're at time. Well, we're a little bit over, but that's okay.
Yeah. Did we talk about all the things we wanted to talk about?
We got everything on our list.
Yay!
And then we have some resources here to put into like the
Ah,
description
indeed.
bars and stuff like that. So yeah, we're good. We'll sign off now and we'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.
Yay! We have not decided because there's a pile of things that are going to happen between here and then,
Mm-hmm.
and a big long to-do list. But we're going to try and stick with, I think, some relative stuff for the time because things are pretty heavy now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of I think we kind of want to respect where everybody's brains are at right now and stuff like that, and sometimes a little bit of happy. So maybe we'll go that direction next time.
Yeah. Maybe we'll go. All right. I'm
Yeah.
gonna bye.